let's turn to Ted Rossman, Senior Industry Analyst with Bankrate. Ted, welcome back to Faith Nation. So it looks like the stock market is actually shrugging off the Jerome Powell investigation. Is that how you view it? What are your thoughts?
That's right. Yeah, the market's up today. In fact, hit a record high earlier this week. The market has just been humming right along. There are concerns about a lack of Fed independence. The Powell prosecution is something that members of both parties have spoken out against, really with the rationale being that an independent central bank is really important to the economy. The Fed, of course, has this dual mandate to promote stable prices and maximum employment. Studies show that countries with independent central banks do a better job of stewarding the economy, keeping inflation in check. That's why this is so important.
Yeah. While we have you here, let's talk about the Trump tariffs, Ted. China registering its biggest ever trade surplus and up 20%, showing the Chinese government really has found enough trade partners outside of the United States to make up for the slowing shipments here to the U.S. Ted, how significant is that, and what does it mean for the administration's tariffs?
It's pretty remarkable. Tariffs have really not played out as a lot of economists had predicted. Certainly, China's doing well. They're finding additional markets to open up to their goods. They surged exports to Africa, Southeast Asia. They're replacing a lot of what used to go to the US. And of course, we are still importing a good amount from China, just not quite as much as before. So yeah, they're doing well, but actually the US economy is doing well also. We haven't really seen the surge in inflation that a lot of people had warned against when we heard about all these tariffs. So far, a lot of retailers have been absorbing that into their margins. Of course, that has some consequences, and they may not be able to do that forever. But this is also stocking the federal government's coffers. So far, dare I say, mostly so good on the tariff front. There are still some lingering concerns that could this eventually lead to higher prices? So far, it's been a better situation than expected. The market volatility is long in the rearview mirror. Now the bigger thing to watch is, what does the Supreme Court say? We're expecting that ruling any day about tariffs legality, and that could have some ripple effects depending on how that goes.
Yeah. It is interesting to note, as you said, a lot of these companies are absorbing the cost, and I know a lot of companies were stockpiling in advance to anticipate the effects of the tariffs. I want to move on. President Trump wants to cap interest rates on credit cards at 10%. Now, that's riskier unsecured debt. Do you think banks will comply, first off? And then might that move hurt or have unintended consequences, like Speaker Johnson suggested, maybe a cap on lending for borrowers?
Banks are going to fight this very hard. This is a proposal. It's not something that can take effect without congressional approval. There is a bipartisan group of senators who are behind this, but it's very unclear if or when it would come to a vote. Frankly, I don't think it will pass because I do think there are major negative unintended consequences. A lot of people could lose access to credit. That's the problem. This sounds great on the face of it. The average credit card now charges 20%. If that were capped at 10, yes, in theory, people would save money on interest, but the financial industry says that close to 90% could actually lose some or all of their access to credit cards because it just wouldn't be profitable for lenders if they were capped at 10%. So there are major worries about access to credit. What would the alternative be? Not that we want you to be in credit card debt, but if you don't have access to credit, that next car repair or medical bill or grocery bill might land on a payday loan or something a lot worse than the current credit card situation. So that's an unintended consequence to watch for.
Yeah. All right, Ted Rossman, Senior Industry Analyst with Bankrate. Ted, nice to see you. Thank you.